Hi there, welcome back to the shop. I'm Cale. Today we're talking about CNCs and why they get such a bad rap. It seems every few weeks that I'll see the comment from people that CNC is not real woodworking. Every time I hear that, I just smile because it's a debate that's really more about identity than tools. And that's what we're going to get into today. Hope you'll stick with me. Okay, before we dive into this heated topic about woodworking or not woodworking, there's a lot of viewers on my channel who are fairly new to woodworking, so let me start by explaining what a CNC is, because a lot of times I mention it to people and they go, oh, I don't know what he's talking about. So, fancy term, it stands for computer numerically controlled. All that means is that there's a wood cutting bit on a router. Think of this as like a big palm router. It's just mounted to a moving gantry. So a CNC is basically a computer that controls a design that tells the bit where to go on X and Y and how deep to cut on Z, and you can use it to make lots of woodworking projects. In fact, if you're like me, you can do everything from cutting leather on this using a drag knife. It's basically a razor blade that mounts in here, and then you use the CNC to cut leather. I use it to cut acrylic. I have special bits that allow me to cut acrylic. You can cut wood. You can cut, well, just about anything, even lightweight metals with this particular CNC, brass and aluminum up to, say, 1/4 of an inch, depending on how patient you are. Anyway, that's what a CNC is. So now that we've talked about what a CNC is, let me ask those of you out there watching this video, if you've got the fortitude, drop a comment below. CNC yes or CNC no? CNC yes, if you're a believer that CNCs are just another tool in the wood shop. CNC no, if you're one of those purists who believe that they don't have a place in woodworking and that they're somehow cheating. So drop that comment as we move on with the video, and then later on we'll circle back around and talk more about that. So here's the debate. You've got one camp that says CNCs aren't real woodworking, that woodworking should be done with hand planes, chisels, and dovetail saws. You've got the other camp that says that a CNC is just another tool in the shop. It's just like a jointer, a planer, a table saw. And if using a CNC is cheating, then what would you call a woodworker who uses a lathe to make bowls and dowels? Shouldn't they just be holding a stump in the backyard and working on it with a hand chisel? So that's kind of the two camps. So both of those camps have a lot of emotion and believe heavily in their storyline, but neither one of them has the full story. So that's what I want to get into today. First of all, let's talk about what a CNC actually does. What it actually does is remove a little bit of labor from your woodworking projects. It doesn't remove any skill. In fact, if you have a CNC, or if you've learned about CNCs, or if you know someone who has, you know that they're not the easiest tool to use. They're about as finicky as 3D printers and about as much fun to use when you first get started with them. So not only do you have to know how to set up and build and tune and dial this machine in so it'll actually cut, you also have to have a familiarity with what's called computer-aided drafting or CAD software, because you have to be able to design whatever it is that you want to cut. You also have to have an understanding of computer-aided manufacturing, or CAM, which is how you convert your drawing into the numbers that your CNC can run around on the wasteboard and cut out for you. So going even deeper than that, CNC operators also have to know how to hold down wood material in such a way that the CNC can actually cut the piece out. And the real trick is managing to trick your CNC into not running over the clamps that you have in place, because that seems to be a real thing. You also have to have an understanding of what bits you should use. There's upcut bits, downcut bits, spiral bits, straight bits, and a whole bunch of other ones too. So you have to understand what those are all used for. You also have to understand speeds and feeds. If I put pine or plywood in here, I can go really fast with a really high rotational speed on the router. If I put oak or ash or some other incredibly hard wood in here, I have to slow down how fast the CNC moves around, and I have to slow down how fast the bit moves, or I run the risk of burning things. You also have to deal with tool marks, tear out, and all the traditional things that you would get when you run a machine bit against a piece of wood. You can get unpredictable results. And then once the thing comes out of the CNC, you still have to figure out what you're going to do with it. You have to figure out how to sand it and how to finish it and how to assemble it. So there is no machine that does all of that for you. Trust me, if there was, we'd all own one. Here's the point that I think most CNC poo-pooers miss, and that is that almost none of us are traditionalist woodworkers anymore. Most of us seem to use table saws, planers, miter saws, joiners, band saws, drum sanders, palm sanders, all sorts of machine tools to do our work. None of those tools existed in the 1700s, but the woodworking purists don't call those cheating. It seems to me that to draw the line at the CNC as not woodworking seems a bit arbitrary, right? Here's what I think really bothers the woodworkers who are against CNCs as a woodworking tool. If you've spent an entire lifetime, or heck, even just a few years learning to master your craft, and you're cutting hand-cut dovetails and other joints, and all of a sudden this machine comes along that can do the same thing with higher precision, faster, better, you feel like your woodworking skills don't matter anymore. And that's not true. So technology and tools are always going to change, but craftsmanship won't. There'll never be a replacement for your ability to use your hands to make something amazing. Whether you use a CNC to help you get there or a bandsaw or anything else really is beside the point. Your craftsmanship is something that will always be valuable and will always be part of your identity. So you really shouldn't feel like something like a CNC can replace that. Have you ever noticed that having better equipment or better tools rarely make you better at that thing? Back in my prime, I would regularly beat the snot out of one of my friends on the golf course with my crappy used Play It Again Sports golf clubs. Now he looked pretty sharp in his foot joys with his ping zings, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Having all these fancy tools doesn't make you better at what you do. You still have to learn to master them, whether it's a hand chisel or a dovetail saw or a big CNC like this. They all require time, effort, frustration, and reps to get good at. My dad was a perfect example of this. Working from the tailgate of his Ford F-150 with crappy tools from Sears, sometimes in the rain, he would make some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. Honestly, I think you should embrace both sides, all sides, and any sides of tools. People who love woodworking and people who love making things, they don't show loyalty to a tool. They show loyalty to results and skill. And whatever tool you're using, if you can make beautiful, amazing things with it, then you've accomplished something real and you should be proud of that. I use some of my power tools like my bandsaw and my table saw and my jointer and my planer to prepare and mill my own rough hardwood to get it down to be able to put it onto the CNC. I like using my CNC to make things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to make, like these zero clearance hardwood inserts that I design and sell online. I could never do this by hand, at least not with any real repetition and any ability to get this to fit a complete stranger's saw. So it really comes down to this. Is CNC woodworking? Well, in my opinion, yes, it is. So is using a bandsaw. So is using any tool that you can get your hands on. To me, woodworking is making things out of wood, however they get there. Woodworking isn't defined by the tool. It's defined by the decisions that you make as a creative designer, builder, thinker, tinkerer, and engineer. The things that you come up with in your imagination, or the build plans that you buy online and follow instructions to build something from. That is woodworking. That is what I admire and what I try to emulate every day. If you really need to slice this all the way down to the quick, then it comes down to two things. You're either an electrically enabled woodworker or you're a non-electrically enabled woodworker. There's absolutely nothing wrong with either one. If I was building a cabin up in the woods and all I had was my CNC, I'd be pretty screwed. Too bad I didn't focus on learning how to use a hatchet and a hammer and a chisel. But if I'm in a wood shop like mine where I have access to power, I appreciate the technology that can help me. So here's what it comes down to for me. I say let the technology help you and let tradition guide you. And use both of those to make a better woodworker out of yourself. At least that's what I try to do. So thanks for hanging out with me today and listening to me wax poetic about CNCs and why I think they're real woodworking. I hope you'll join the conversation down below in the comments and let me know what you think. I always like hearing other people's opinion about what they like or don't like about CNCs or bandsaws or any other woodworking tool. Heck, I just like talking about woodworking. So join me in the conversation down below and let me know, where do you come down on this? So that's it for me, friends. Till next time, peace, love, and sawdust. I'm out.